Perfect. So President Trump has a big day today. He's on his way to Anchorage, Alaska to meet with President Putin. What are your thoughts on that meeting ahead of today?
Yeah, I'm glad to see President Trump meeting face-to-face with President Putin. There's no better way to get a feel for how things need to be resolved and the resolve of adversaries other than sitting face-to-face with them and talking directly with them. So I think this is going to produce some great results. We all want peace and stability in Europe, and I think President Trump is the person to get it done.
In this meeting today, what kind of message do you think it sends to allies in other countries around the world, especially those who are at war right now?
My hope is that President Trump, in his discussions with President Putin today, sends a message to Putin that we're not going to stand for his expansionist intent. We do not want to see a tyrant begin to push on Europe like he has done. He needs to withdraw. He needs to get back to the place where there was agreement on the borders of Ukraine back in the early 90s. He needs to abide by that agreement. But he needs to send a signal also, President Trump does, and I think he will, to the rest of the world, that we're going to stand on the right side of history on this issue, and that is not support a tyrant like President Putin, but to support peace, democracy, stability in Europe, and stand with our partners there.
Now, what role, if any, should Congress have in overseeing or maybe being involved in meetings like these?
Well, there's no substitute for having the executives meet face-to-face, and clearly we want to support our president in this effort because the strength that he has restored to the Oval Office and to America on the world stage in just 8 months is incredible. And because of that, we're seeing nations like Russia and China come to the negotiating table and realize that they cannot push America around like they have been for the past 4 years. And so I applaud President Trump. We're here to support him in his efforts and to make sure that he knows he has the backing of Congress as he pushes for peace and stability and prosperity across the globe.
Now, here a little bit closer to home, East Texas in the country, we're seeing tariffs as a recent topic. It's been going on for a couple of months. What effects have you seen from East Texans right now with tariffs?
Across the 1st District of Texas, we have seen businesses throughout this tariff and trade issue really start to kind of hold on to and put a pause on exercise of their capital. So there is this uncertainty that's going on in the market these days, and especially if you're connected internationally through supply chains or through markets, there's uncertainty that needs to be settled. We applaud President Trump's effort to do that because we're getting to a place where we're going to have more fairness in the trade and tariff policies across the globe. We're going to have more reciprocity. The United States has been taken advantage of for far too long by Europe and by Asia and across the globe. Those countries that have not just had tariff barriers, but non-tariff trade barriers, keeping our products and services out and favoring those products and services by other countries. So I think the resetting that's taking place right now certainly is causing some pause and some uncertainty and some question by businesses now. But I am certain by the end of the 2025 calendar year, we're going to see that all resolved. We're going to see great business growth next year as a result, not only of the certainty in the tariff and trade area, but also because of the great One Big Beautiful Bill that we passed that's going to lower taxes for families, for farmers, and give tax certainty for businesses moving forward.
And glad you mentioned going into the next year. John Deere just this quarter said that they saw some loss in the revenue because of the tariffs. They said that yesterday. East Texas, we know, is a big agricultural community. What do you have to say to the constituents who are maybe seeing those setbacks now, and what kind of maybe optimism could you tell them going into the rest of this year and into next year?
Yeah, I fully recognize that right now the uncertainty on the trade and tariff issue is causing issues with businesses as it relates to those that are connected internationally. No question about that. Supply chains are getting more expensive, and consumers are going to pay the price for a long-term tariff war. We don't want to see that. We want to see tariffs as low as possible when we get through this process. But I've had a discussion with a number of businesses across East Texas that say, and they've said to me even this week, we recognize that this year has been tough for us because of the trade and tariff issues, but we are looking forward to next year, and we expect that next year is going to be a banner year for us. And they applaud the efforts of the president to stand up firmly in the ground of America first. And we have to push back against even our allies and partners around the world that have had tariff policies and non-tariff trade barrier policies that are hurting American businesses.
On the terms of tariffs, where do you stand? Do you support keeping them or increasing them or just removing them?
Long term, term, I want tariffs as low as possible because tariffs is just another word for a tax. Ultimately, the consumer is going to pay that tax, but we can use tariffs as you've seen, a negotiation strategy to make other countries come to the table and to engage in fairer economic policies as it relates to our businesses. We can also use that as a punishment mechanism against adversaries like China or Iran or North Korea or Russia. And I think in particular as it relates to China, it's the great way for us to get them in a headlock and say, listen, we're not going to stand for the economic undermining that you've done for decades now as it relates to our businesses, and we want you to behave more fairly and correctly and legally as it relates to our businesses and our trade practices, and I think that will happen.
I know Texas has been on the national news with redistricting right now. What are your thoughts now? 2 weeks ago, House Democrats left the state. Now they're coming back under two conditions. What are your thoughts on everything that's happened in the last 2 weeks?
Well, they need to come back, and I think eventually they will come back regardless of whatever conditions may or may not be agreed to, because they have a responsibility to their voters to go and argue best as they can in Austin what they think needs to happen on not just redistricting but other issues. And ultimately the votes will then be cast and be counted and the decision will be made. But to abdicate their responsibility to flee their state and to not fulfill the obligation, that fiduciary obligation they have to their voters is unfortunate. And I hope that their voters remember that and hold them accountable.
Do you think the congressional lines are fairly drawn right now, or does redrawing need to happen mid-decade?
Well, that's totally a decision that's out of my purview and out of my control. Nobody's consulted me on that. It's a state legislative decision, and so they're going to do what they think they need to happen at the state level. I love representing the 1st District of Texas. I love the way it's drawn up now. I think it's a great rural district. It represents rural East Texas very firmly. But no matter how those lines are redrawn, we will continue to represent the people that the state legislature determines we should represent and move forward and say we firmly are going to be the voice, a loud voice, for rural East Texas, for liberty, and for our families and farmers.
Perfect. Anything else? Last thoughts, Congressman?
Thank you.